Hi, I'm Nikki, the Obsessive Bookseller. Welcome to my channel. Today I would like to talk about Booktube hype. I am relatively new to the hype scene. The most exposure I got before joining Booktube was working as a bookseller. So whenever a new movie came out, everybody would run in and buy the books. Or, there were some very specific series like Twilight and Harry Potter that always had a lot of people talking about them. But for the most part, unless it's an Oprah book club, sales were pretty consistent with everything. And so, especially in the science fiction fantasy category, nothing really stood out above the rest. There wasn't a lot of word of mouth on those titles, at least where I lived. And then I started blogging in 2012 and joined Goodreads in 2014 and started moderating a group on Goodreads, and that came with a little bit of hype. Suddenly everybody wanted to buddy read the same books, and so that's the extent to my exposure there. And then I joined Booktube. Now, I knew humans were highly influential. Is that the right word? Influenceable? Just based on the massive industry of selling ads. I mean, even here on YouTube, our entire platform is supported by selling ad space and view time to advertisers. And they wouldn't be spending all that money if it didn't work. So I majored in business, I know all of this, but I never really brought all of that perspective to the book community. And I have been vastly underestimating the power of consistent exposure on this platform. It has taken me almost a year of participating on Booktube before I finally realized that it's having a major impact on my reading life. And it's kind of fascinating to see how this constant exposure to all of these titles is not only changing me, but influences other people that I watch. It starts with a catalyst, someone who's pretty high up as an influencer, has a ton of followers, we all watch them, when they absolutely love a book. We'll talk about the hate train also, but a little bit later. So that one person loves a book, and then we all take note. We may not actively add it to our TBR, but it's in the back of our heads, watch that. But then a few people will drop everything and read it immediately, just based on suggestion. And then those people post TBRs and reviews for the book pretty soon after. And here we have the hype train starting to gain momentum. And I would argue that most of these reviews posted early on are going to be positive reviews for the book. Mostly because they went into it expecting to like it, because they trust the opinion of the big influencer. Expectation is everything. And then the rest of us who are on the fence see this budding arsenal of positive content and feedback on the book and think, well, it must be worth reading if everybody who is reading it is having a good time with it. Then more content is made, buddy reads ensue, live show discussions happen about it, and before you know it, every single person on Booktube is talking about this title one way or another. And at any given point, you've got about 5 to 10 titles that you pretty much will see on everybody's channels. At this point, you'll start to see some negative reviews pop up here and there, but that doesn't do anything to destroy the momentum. All it does is change people from saying, I've heard really good things about this book, to I've heard really mixed things about this book, but I'm going to pick it up anyway to see for myself. Because we all know at this point, we would also like to be on that train, regardless of the negative reviews, and we're going to read it anyway. And we all know the recent titles gaining such momentum. Jade City, which might have had its day now that everybody's had a chance to read it, except for me, of course. Empire of Silence, Legends and Lattes, A Boy's Life, Grace of Kings, Curse of the Mistwraith, Robin Hobb, Dark Tower. And in some cases, especially with the newer budding channels, this is all that they are talking about. This is a pretty consistent chain reaction that happens with these new titles. And for me, it's a little bit frightening at how easy things catch on when just one person says it's good. And here's what it's doing to me. From consuming all of this content on a consistent basis, I have been made to believe that I really must be reading these, and I must buy them immediately, and they must be the most expensive pristine hardcovers that I can get my hand on, because I feel like I am a successful booktuber when I have all the things that match what everybody else is talking about, right? But here's the thing, I really want to read them. I can be a little perverse, and I do have that tendency inside me that says, Perhaps you won't read it just to be a little obtuse because everybody's talking about it. So, I want to do my own thing sometimes. But here's the thing. I actually really want to read these titles. They sound right up my alley. Everybody's talking about it. And if this many booktubers have said positive things, it must be amazing, right? And it makes sense. I mean, why else do we watch Booktube other than to get some help in picking through the millions of titles that are out there to find the ones that work for us? I mean, that's kind of the whole point. That's the reason I make content, is to help share the good books that I'm reading with people. I've kind of built a book selling career on handing people their next best book. So it's structured like that for a reason. And I'm not dogging on anybody who follows the hype train. I'm on it. But it's just an interesting thing to really sit down and examine. What I am struggling with is the fact that the FOMO for all of these titles is influencing how much time I'm spending on the books that are hyped as opposed to the ones that I already knew I wanted to read before seeing this content, before being bombarded with this content. It makes you change your reading plans. I've been putting together high priority to be read series for the last couple of months for various videos that I've done, and almost all of the hyped series that I hadn't read before are on that list, in place of really high priority things that I've been carrying around for like 20 years. Why is one so much more important than the other? I can't tell you the distinction, other than fear of missing out, fear of not being involved in the conversations, feeling like I'm the only one on Booktube who hasn't read Jade City yet. And what's more exciting titles come across my radar because of Booktube than I have time to get to. And so my reading life becomes a little bit more stressful than it needs to be because I feel that constant need to be reading the things I'm not reading. It's an anxiety that builds up. So I rush through my current reads to get to the next thing, and I always feel really hesitant about picking up tomes on my list because that would take up way too much time, and then I won't get to all these things that Booktube says I should be reading. And actually, being a content creator limits how many tomes you feel like you can spend time on, which is a video for another day. It's also bothering me because I feel like the more I share the hyped content, which I have already had a lot of footage dedicated to some of these titles, the less I'm focusing on the stuff that really drove me to start the channel in the first place. I feel like I'm just following along with the masses, and I don't like that. Which brings me to the debate. Do I want to be a part of the popular kids club, or do I want to go sit by myself with originality? I don't have an answer for that today. Can I do both? So half of my workday is taken up by catching up on Booktube videos. It's all I watch on YouTube practically. I have a few odds and ends, but mostly it's Booktube content, and I spend a couple hours a day on Booktube. I seriously wonder if I stopped watching for a couple of months and just focused on the books that I already own, if my reading experience would be improved considerably. I think the answer might be yes. Okay, and here's where the real rant comes in, because I want to spend a little bit of time on negative hype for books. It's all fun and games when an influencer really likes a book, but when someone hates it and puts the mark of shame on a series, that opinion trickles down throughout Booktube in the exact same manner, especially if it's books in a series like the Rainwild Chronicles, part of the Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. Everybody loves Hobb, is reading Hobb, but then we all hear that Rainwilds isn't that good. I've heard similar things for Codex Alera and Brian McClellan's Powder Mage, series that I personally really enjoyed but read long before I was a part of Booktube. So go with me a second. I feel like this is what is happening in those cases. You hear negative things about a series you were already planning to read. That puts you in this sort of mindset when you go into the series that already prepared not to like it. When I am already prepared not to like something, I immediately start nitpicking it from the beginning instead of taking my time to acclimating it with it and see if I can enjoy it for what it is. Mindset is everything, and seeing how positive book exposure can really change the narrative of just okay books, it has to be similar for negative. We have to keep in mind that negative reviews for books are just as susceptible to that hype or lack thereof. So I would argue that either way, it's important to keep in mind biases before going in. Because if you've been watching Booktube, you have biases towards certain books and series. And I do love the content creators who always say, you know, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. You might like this. Here's some attributes to it. It's like why constructive criticism in that case is so appreciated. Because even if you didn't like it, you can kind of convey why, and then the audience can kind of glean whether or not it would work for them. It is also important to realize that 5 to 10 booktubers, which is on average what we all kind of watch, we kind of get our favorites out of there, 5 to 10 does not a good sample size make. The phrase, everyone says this is so good, drives me crazy because I doubt they're on Goodreads checking out the many reviews for the book. No, they're talking about the same 3 or 4 booktubers that we all watch and have added the book to our TBR because of. So a couple people does not constitute as everyone. And that would be indicated by the comments that I get. Whenever I talk about a book or a series, I get all sorts of different opinions on different books. So if they say, I've heard this is good, it means they watched the same influencer as you and added it to their TBR. That's all I'm saying. The sun is going down. That means that the end of my ramble is near. It's just really fascinating to me to see the hype dynamic going on. And I'm definitely not criticizing anybody for it because I am also a part of this process. I have purchased all the books I've been interested in that I keep seeing all around. And especially with Empire of Silence, I saw that one around so many times and I thought, I'm not going to buy into it. It doesn't sound like something I want to read. But eventually I got exposed enough to it, and then someone had one really good comment that sold me on it, so I bought it. And I also don't think there's anything wrong with the hype. It's just, yeah, I'll say it again, a little frightening at how well it works. How easy it is to get that momentum going, and how everybody just shifts around all of their plans to read the books that have suddenly become the darlings of Booktube. I'm not saying any of this is going to change my plans for what I'm reading or the type of content that I'm going to be consuming, but I do really think that if I had the gall to stop watching Booktube, even though I enjoy it so much, that I would feel at least 50% less stressed about what I have coming up next to read, because I wouldn't be constantly exposed to the things that I'm missing out on. It's all about finding that balance. And I am fortunate that many of my projects, like Project Sci-Fi, Read Burn Horde, Project YA, Project Urban Fantasy, all of them kind of have more to do with me reading backlists, and so I don't have the luxury of spending all my time on the hyped books. But I leave you with this, I'll probably really enjoy them when I get around to them. So I want to know, what does Booktube hype do to you? Is it something that you welcome into your life with relish and you just can't wait to see what new thing everybody's talking about so you can get your hands on it and that's pretty much all you read? Or are you like me where your TBR is so extensive that it's just causing more problems? I'd love to hear about it. Thank you so much for joining me for this Fading Light ramble, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye.